So welcome everyone. I know the session before sort of went into AI, but this is really the true AI session. So we'll start off with just a quick round of introduction, and you tell us who you work for, who you are, and then we can kick off. Bernard, you want to start us off?
Good afternoon. My name is Chiira. I'm the founder of AT4D, which is a legacy organization of Africa's first AT accelerator, Innovate Now. Really excited to be here. My visual description, a quick one. I am wearing a navy blue sweater, brown pants, and white shoes, and very cool crutches that I love that are black in color. Thank you.
Okay. Next, Jessica.
Hi again, everyone. I should have done a costume change, but I didn't. I have a red shirt on and a red blazer and a blue shirt, and I use a power wheelchair. And this is like my dream to be on the stage with these legends, so thanks for having me again.
My name is Patnoe. Imagine Tom Cruise, but taller, fatter, and uglier. That's me. I'm wearing black trousers, black shoes, and a seaside shirt called Big Sur.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Irungu Houghton. I serve as Amnesty International Kenya's Executive Director. I am 6 foot, relatively brown, and with brown trousers to match, white shirt, and my favorite value is integrity.
Fantastic. So my name is Irene Mbari-Kirika, the founder and executive director of enABLE. I was really excited about this session, and I made sure I was the one who's going to moderate, because it's very interesting. I think half the time we are asking ourselves, what is AI? What are the challenges? We have so much excitement, yet there's so much fear. Half the time we don't know what to believe, what not to believe. So I don't know if there's someone who can tell us what AI is. Who knows? Anyone? Hudson? No? So I think, Jessica, you want to tell us what's AI? How many types of AI are there? What do we need to do with AI? All that?
I'm laughing because Irene chose the lawyer on the stage to explain this, but maybe this is good. I am not a data scientist. I'm not a computer scientist, but I can share with you kind of my understanding of what the important terminology is within AI, and someone can hold me accountable in the room. When I think about artificial intelligence, I think about a computer or machine, anything's ability to learn. So think about the human brain and its ability to learn. That's AI. Another important term that we mentioned in our last session was machine learning. So if the data is the ingredients and we need the data in order to power AI, the machine learning is that process for mixing it together. Machine learning takes data, a lot of it, and then it creates the AI that we use. The next one I wanted to add was generative AI. So generative AI is when all of us were using AI in order to create something new. So putting AI to work to create things, but it can't do that without the machine learning and the data that we talked about. And the very last thing that I'll add is, large language models. We mentioned that in the last session too. I think this is an important definition to know. Large language models think big data. So that's what the large means. And those language models train the AI in order to create an interactive process. So this could be using language to do something like chat. How did I do? Just pretend it was okay. It was good? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you for that, Jessica. And maybe one more question for you.
Sure.
Can you, how can AI transform the power, how can the transformative power of AI intelligence be harnessed to address specific challenges faced by individuals with disabilities in Africa?
Yeah. Well, I think you all have heard me talk about this because I'm so excited about it. And we'll get to the risks, and I want to be real that there are risks, and we need to address those. Because responsible AI is accessible AI. And what I mean by that is that, number one, the AI that we create needs to be accessible to people with disabilities. Y'all need to be able to use it. We all have to be able to use it. And what we're seeing internally at Microsoft is this really great feedback loop of people with disabilities who are using AI and using generative AI and providing feedback on how it's working well and how it's not. And we're working with the community to really take that feedback in and improve upon it. I think one of the things I've really enjoyed watching is how someone who is deaf at our company, he's beginning to lose his hearing, and he's really struggling to identify voices. So he can use AI to associate a name in a call with the person's voice. And that's really helpful for him, something he can do privately, and no one needs to know. But that is really something that I see of as a real opportunity. The third area is that AI has to be innovative. It has to be things that augment our lives and make them better. And we cannot do that without understanding truly what the disability community wants to see in AI and what it can do to augment our life experiences.
Maybe, Bernard, you can add something about the innovative ways we can use AI, especially when it comes to assistive technology.
All right, thank you, Irene. I'm just reminiscing something in my mind that's somebody said, I think it was our keynote speaker, and he said that AI is neither artificial nor intelligent. And I guess really what he was trying to get at is that there's a lot of fear that one day AI will replace human intelligence, and many other fears that are associated with AI. And sometimes also people think AI in a very broad sense. I think for me, the way I'd love to think about AI is the application of AI, and more specifically in the area of assistive technology, which essentially is looking at products and services that really enable persons with disabilities to enjoy the same level of functionality, independence, and freedom. And particularly, I have been thinking about also AI and accessibility. I think one of the things that AI really does is to speed up and simplify tasks. So on Wednesday, we actually, AT4D and Nextstep Foundation launched a Center for AI and SDGs. And really one of the questions that we were looking at is, will AI really benefit people with disabilities, especially in this country? And I remember giving this example of how people with disabilities can really use AI for everyday tasks. Think about, for example, employment. For you to get a job, most likely you need to have a resume, isn't it? So if you look at how AI tools are being applied in the resume space, one, employers actually are using AI for screening resumes. So imagine a big organization that receives thousands and thousands of CVs. So they will actually employ AI to screen. And then I thought about, okay, one of the things we struggle with if you're a person with disabilities is sometimes you are not visible to those who need to see you, say employers. And sometimes when it comes to personal branding, really being able to present yourself or to brand yourself as an asset so that you can actually get that job. And then I just realized that this could be a game changer for personal branding for people with disabilities. Because today there are tools you can use to either make your resume very relevant to the job application so that you're not failing on the first step, that's a very simple application if you think about it. But in other aspects of assistive technology, what I've started seeing, especially from entrepreneurs that have gone through our accelerator program, is this idea of when you think about things like access to speech therapy. I don't know how many of us have any experience with speech therapy. So there's a lot of research going on in that area, especially in the application of AI to train on speech. So one of our startups is called Easy Speech, and what they are doing is to look at how the movement of the mouth and the tongue, occurs for someone who has speech challenges. and then build algorithms to train anybody, regardless of the language you speak, to make those movements that can improve your speech. And that's just one example.
Thank you, Bernard. I definitely believe in AI. I believe it can transform the disability space in Africa, but I also believe we face a lot of challenges and a lot of lack information and education. So maybe, Irungu, you could walk us through some of the challenges of AI, especially when it comes to security, privacy, or anything to do with ethics and data.
Thank you, Irene. So I think there are a couple of thoughts that occurred to me as I was preparing for this panel. And just to say that, as Amnesty International, I don't think we've done enough to pay attention to this. I think our concentration on AI over the last year or so, and many of us are really, I guess, speed reading and speed policy developing, has been around, for example, the violence, the online violence that you can get with cyberbullying and other issues. And we've been particularly interested in the impact on young people and women. The second area has been really around mass surveillance and how AI models are used to essentially identify and profile large categories of people in the US, particularly people of color, and really how do we make sure that those large, I guess, machine learning systems do not create the biases that in Kenya we would recognize. For example, anybody with dreadlocks is obviously the person who stole everything in the room. The third area has been really around, so profiling has been one of the concerns with AI. The third area is the risks to active citizenship and to elections. The United States are about to go through the elections. It's actually started in courtrooms and various other places. The thing that really most people are worried about is really that what you will have is an election that will be determined by algorithms and these huge AI systems that all the two big political parties will have, and they will fight it out there, and it doesn't really matter who goes to the ballot. And in fact, some people will not even go to the ballot because of the power of artificial intelligence. So these are the kind of areas where we've been largely focusing, and maybe just one last one, which is on the issue of access to services. Many governments are now using this technology to determine, for example, who gets access to social protection grants, who gets access to education bursaries, how do you manage health insurance. This is fundamentally important for those of us that believe in equality under the law, and specifically important for people with disabilities, I would argue. So I think, the work we've been doing can easily lend to this work. A couple of more points, maybe perhaps. For those of you who are from Kenya, and this is going back to the definition of artificial intelligence, let me just start by saying artificial intelligence is not the mark of the beast. It is not satanic, right? Now, you're laughing.
Interesting.
But there are large numbers of our people who actually believe this, as I found out in a place called Bomet, which has the highest number of cyber hackers. In fact, the Mulot hackers, if you know them. And I was asked this question by actually a very intelligent manager of a telecommunications company for that county, right? So it's not just somebody who's trying to figure out whether it's artificial intelligence or Amnesty International. It's actually come to quite somebody quite senior. Let me put in a personal note. About 12 years ago, my son lost his sight. And he's actually in the room, I think. Eric, are you here? If you are, please stand up.
Woohoo! We have one more dad. I know we had too many women who are champions for their kids. So we have one more dad here.
And I'm happy to do a separate class with men and their children. Yeah. My son is no longer a child, let me stop that. But Eric Ngondi, that moment that we had as a family where we had to come to terms with, what does Kenya offer people who suddenly lose their sight, right? And we weren't so much worried for him, but we were worried for the country, right? Now, in Kenya today, something like just over 4.5 million people have some form of a disability, which neither the economy, nor the society, nor our state, and for maybe I can add in non-governmental NGOs, are prepared to transform the environment so that it is inclusive for everybody. We have a constitution that gives everybody the right to dignity, to equality, But the reality is on the ground is that none of the practices that we are seeing, none of the investments that we're seeing are really a match for the constitutional promise for all people, right? So I think from a risk perspective, coming very specifically now to AI, I think, we've heard a couple of points about, the promise of AI. I think there is an issue around, assistive technology, going back 12 years, the amount of speed reading I did on assistive technology for the family was just crazy. I mean, I had 6 people in different parts of the world just doing this full-time for a month because we were really committed to make sure that we would create an environment that would allow, Eric and everybody else to be able to, to continue operating at their fullest potential. Now, that is no longer so difficult, right? Because I can go into ChatGPT and generate a question and get tons of material back that was not possible 10 years ago. So I think there is real opportunity in terms of learning, in terms of education, and so on. The dangers, I think, are that we still do not have clear legislative frameworks and enforcement around people with disabilities across the continent, and Kenya is still one of those countries. We still have a disinterest by policymakers to prioritize universal design in all the spaces. So the point about trying to get across Nairobi, it's difficult enough even to drive across Nairobi, let alone try and navigate it with some disability or some challenge. And I think the point that we have to demand right now is that the laws that are being developed around artificial intelligence have to be disability rights based. Now, for those of you in Kenya, again, there is a task force working on this at the moment. They came to an end of their the tenure, and the report is still in draft form. But if people are interested, Dr. Walubengo, I suspect, will be very interested in this aspect. So I think we need to move quickly before the laws are created around artificial intelligence, and then we have to do, miscellaneous work, if I can put it that. The third point, I think, really is to demand that the state has a clear set of guidelines around all the uses of artificial intelligence, particularly in terms of service delivery. And I think this is an area that perhaps Amnesty could look at a lot more with the National Council on Persons with Disability to start raising these debates more directly. And then I think the last one I wanted to say is that, when I began looking at this issue, I thought the greatest clarity for me came from 2 spaces. One was the UN Rapporteur on the right of persons with disabilities, and that report that came out, I think, a couple of years ago, 2022. But I don't get a sense that it's been domesticated very far within the Global South, and particularly Africa. Let me stop there.
Okay. No, thank you so much. I think 2 points. One is, first, we really commend you for standing up for your son. Today, 3 or 4 ladies came to me and asked, are there any fathers or dads here who are champions for their kids with disabilities? Because most of the people you find here are either moms, sisters. So thank you so much. We know that, I keep saying that if you have a member of your family who has a disability, you have a lived experience because you have to figure it out as well. But you said something important, and I'm going over to Chris, about how we have to work really hard and make sure we provide the information to the Commission. And it's interesting how disability always comes after when it comes to legislation and everything else. So I think it's important we try and figure out how do we get at the forefront of these discussions before everything is already mapped out and submitted for legislation. So this next question I have is for Chris. I know you've not talked, and we are almost out of time, but please discuss some strategies to ensure that AI technologies are designed with inclusion in mind. Because in Africa, we're just starting off, and I do believe we can leapfrog and really make a huge difference. So please share what you think we need to do.
I think one of the most important things we need to realize is the fear from AI, what the mark of the beast or what, is because of the lack of transparency into the process. Eugene Gervanius in Canada has this great expression, we need to create AI at the speed of trust, which means if we can let people understand the process, we can be transparent about these things, we have an opportunity to bring people along with us. So I think one of the most important things we need to be is transparent of the process and the benefits. But how you do that is really interesting. One, to the conversation we had earlier, we need to make sure that we have inclusive algorithms, inclusive data sets. We want to make sure that the representations of people with disabilities are in every aspect of the process, from data aggregation towards making sure that what comes out is actually what we want it to be. We don't want to have medical wheelchairs always being the wheelchair that gets shown every time you ask for a chair. Jessica's chair is amazing. I would much rather see that from another hospital chair. But how you do this is really interesting. And there's sort of three ways I think about doing this. So you need to be humble, inclusive, and iterative in the process. The humility comes with because everyone's world experience, everyone's life experience is different. And this is one of the key parts of inclusive design. We want to use inclusive design with the creation of AI. Disability is broad, culture is broad. An AI that has all of its assumptions in Europe won't mean the same thing here. So we need to provide the local context to have it be relevant. Driving algorithms in San Francisco really won't work here in Nairobi. And you can't assume these things that happen. So culture is an important part of the process that we have to bring into it. And we need to, we need to ask questions of the community. Here's more of that inclusion part. How does this work? Is this working for you? Are you represented? Are your needs actually being present? And that only happens when you have the conversation. So this is why you want to build the speed of trust, because that's by having that conversation slows it down a little bit. So you can be more thoughtful of how you want to build these algorithms. Make sure you have the right data set. And you'd be surprised at the kind of things that you discover. On our Pixel phone, this isn't an AI thing, but it's an inclusive design story I think is really cool. We partnered with the RNIB organization, and we learned that for people who use their camera as a magnifier, their camera was littered with hundreds, if not thousands, of photographs that were just supposed to be ephemeral, just supposed to be for the 30 seconds they need to zoom it in and let go. So with that information, we actually added a feature in our magnifier where we don't actually automatically save the pictures. You make a choice to save the picture, and now we save your camera roll. And this is the benefit of inclusive design. You learn what the problems are that you would have never thought of. And finally, it needs to be iterative. We need to have an iterative process to it, because you're never going to hit all of the points at the beginning. You need to have a process to listen, to try it, screw it up, fix it. It's sort of like a rinse, wash, and repeat kind of thing. You build it, you screw it up, you fix it, you get better and better over time, and then at some point you create something that really has the impact that you're looking for. So it's humility, inclusivity, and iterativeness, iteration process, but all in the service of trying to be transparent in what we're trying to do, so we can bring the community along, so there's no fear of the devil in AI.
Fantastic, thank you. I'm seeing someone walking around telling me time is almost up, so but it's fine. So I'll give each of you at least 2 minutes to wrap up. And Bernard, please focus on maybe collaboration a bit more. Irungu, I'd still want to hear more about safety, because there are so many people in here who have no idea what AI is or how to protect themselves. And that's why you're hearing all the stories you're hearing from Bomet. So, Bernard.
Yeah, thank you, Irene. Yeah, so I guess there's a lot to take in, and I guess the lingering question is, okay, so what do we do now? What happens after this panel? There's so much that needs to be done. I think one of the wonderful opportunities we have with platforms like Inclusive Africa Conference is to meet and hear diverse voices. But I think we all have a responsibility after to plug in and try to do the right thing. So my call to action really is be part of a community and engage and reach out. And also I think there are a lot of people that are doing amazing work but are not in the room that we cannot do without. And there's a lot that government is actually doing that people do not know about. So we need to find a way of bringing them in the room and working together. Lastly, just to say, on the issue of AI, the Center for AI and SDGs that we launched, the whole idea is to co-create solutions that enable AI to work for Africa. And I think we can address a lot of these issues by, coming together in a continuous way. I think this is a great point. We meet once a year, but many months later, we need to find a way of keeping the momentum going. So I think, Irene, help us to do that. You have all the data of all the people coming for Inclusive Africa Conference. I think it might be useful to find a way to keep people engaging on some of these topics, which I think are very much needed. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bernard. I do agree. We've had multiple conversations with participants, and definitely we have to figure out how to stay engaged, not just once a year, but continuously. And it will help us come together and address different issues. Over to you, Jessica.
I think my last word on the subject would be play, have fun. I recognize that connectivity is an issue in Africa, and I've learned so much about that. But when you can get access to the tools, many of them are available for you to just have fun with them. And then you can start to learn that there are ways that you can use this technology and specifically apply it to your life. So create an avatar that is a silly representation of you. Use it to have a conversation. We would never have known what the results are when you put into chat, tell me a joke about disability. That's not appropriate. So we had to go in and we had to teach the technology that you can't do that. You can't tell a joke about disability. But we never would have known that unless we played with it.
A lot of the fear of what we're talking about now is around generative AI. But we have AI, and we've had AI in our lives for many, many years already. Captions, automatic captions in YouTube since 2009. Live Transcribe can help transform education. Lookout can help you find your things. Optical character recognition. All of these things have been around us for decades. AI isn't new, so we shouldn't be afraid of it. But we have as an opportunity to take this technology and have it meet our needs, because we're here now having the conversation, and let's work together to make sure that the AI meets your needs and not just mine.
So it's easy for me because you've all spoken before me. I think the key principle within artificial intelligence, and for that matter, digitization of services and digital IDs, which is a big other area that perhaps would be interesting to look at it from this perspective, has been the idea of privacy by design. So that everything is designed around privacy, prior consent, and the right to be forgotten. So you can actually remove data, you can correct data. So that's the first thing. I think the point about transparency is very important, that we force those who are writing code to be more transparent about the way that the code is written and the potential hallucinations that it produces. And I think the other demand that could be made is that companies that are investing large amount of money in this area, that they actually involve people with disabilities to be coders, to be designers, to be overseers. And I think that's the third point. I think there has been a strong point about respect for local culture. One of the dangers on the internet is the English language, and whatever that is these days. But the English language essentially becomes the gateway to all knowledge and all representation of all cultures, right? And I think that's the other thing that we need to think about for many of us who are not native English speakers. We are starting with a disadvantage. And then very lastly is the issue of leadership. Without leadership, particularly from persons with disabilities, this issue will not get transformed in my view, right? I know this again from my family. A young man went blind, was blinded, and he became a leader. And he's now the chair of the National Council on People with Disabilities in the country. That was not in his plan. It was not in my plan. It was not even foreseen. But I think there is something about leadership that produces the tension at critical moments in society's evolution that leads us to move quicker along this path. And I think that's what I would offer back to everybody in this room, is that actually the more that we show up in these spaces that are needed right now, then the chances that we will not see this technology lag for 5 years, excluding millions of people, and then somehow fix it in another generation. Let's fix it now.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I want to add to what Irungu just said. We have to show up, but we have to have the knowledge. So if each and every one of us, if you don't know what's AI, it's okay. But AI is here to stay. It's going to affect us one way or the other. There are benefits, there are disadvantages. So it's up to us to educate ourselves to take advantage of AI. So please, it's not as complicated and as technical as we hear. So go out there, go online, and educate yourself about AI. Just Google or go to ChatGPT and ask, what is AI? What do I need to learn? And I promise you, within a few hours, you will have the knowledge. That knowledge is so important because then, even as you listen to different speakers or someone comes to tell you about how AI is affecting you, you're already knowledgeable. So please, as he said, let's show up. I know my time is up. It's been up for a long time. I want to say a big thank you to everyone on this panel. We've learned a lot, and we'll continue with this conversation because AI is very new, so we have to take time to understand AI. So thank you so much for your time, and thanks everybody, and I hope we can continue to take advantage of AI.